This is the week 2 video, Understanding Oppression, How Privilege Affects Safety. When you feel strongly about an issue, statement, or situation, get more information from the person speaking to you. They might know something that you don't know. What can we do when the discussion becomes heated? What are the options? If someone offers an opinion you don't agree with, try asking them, "Tell me more about that." Don't just ignore what they said. You might learn more about an issue. You might see someone else's perspective. You may change your mind about an issue. You will get to know someone else better. You can become friends because you get to know their perspective or point of view. You might understand them better. If you understand their point of view, you may see that it is valid. If their point of view is valid, what might happen? What happens when you validate another person's perspective? You have learned something new and you have broadened your own perspective. Does this mean you have changed your beliefs? Probably not. It may mean that you are aware of your own prejudices and privileges in a new way. It may mean you no longer act on your prejudice about that issue, statement, or situation. What people are oppressed? What will we study? People are oppressed because of religious beliefs, race or minority status, ethnicity and cultural beliefs, gender expression for LGBT and more, because they are women, because they are from another country, because they are different, because one person has the advantage, because they are poor. Understanding oppression. Oppression can start from prejudice. From your readings, you know that prejudice is a feeling or belief. Oppression is a system of advantages and benefits for the dominant group that allows them privilege and power, and also disadvantages other groups, sometimes called targeted groups. Marginalization, the process of exclusion, is a type of oppression. A culture of silence. Oppressed people become so powerless that they do not even talk about their oppression. At this stage of oppression, it creates a culture where it is forbidden to even mention the injustices that are being committed. The oppressed people are silenced. Exploitation. Using another person's labor and profiting from their labor while not paying them a fair living wage. Have you ever worked at a fast food restaurant? I worked for Taco Time just out of high school. I hated that job. The store owners seemed so uncaring. Name any group that is powerless in a given situation, and you may find that violence is the most readily available tool to oppress that group. Members of some groups live with the knowledge that they must fear random, unprovoked attacks on their persons or property. These attacks do not necessarily need a motive, but are intended to damage, humiliate, or destroy the person. But looking at these, does oppression naturally follow, or is it appropriate for your parents to be in charge of your life, or your instructor to decide what will happen and what work will be assigned in class? As a student, you naturally have less power than your instructor. As a child, you naturally have less power than your parents. You may feel oppressed by your instructors, your parents, your employer, your older sister or brother. Powerlessness. Powerless people are dominated by the ruling class, those people who hold power. Who holds power in the United States? This is a quote from Maggie Kuhn. Power should not be concentrated in the hands of so few, and powerless in the hands of so many. You are powerless when you do not have the right to change your circumstances, to give orders, not allowed to develop your talents, or make decisions. When a group of people oppress another group of people, that is a system of oppression. Before the civil rights movement in the United States, it was legal to deny rights, that is, liberty and justice, to people of color in the United States. The unequal distribution of power results in oppression. As this slide says, oppression forces an unequal relationship and denies another's rights or values. From ages 5 to 14, I lived in Northridge, California, on the northwest edge of the San Fernando Valley. I was not a valley girl. I grew up during elementary school and junior high in the San Fernando Valley. One summer, because we had a pool, we had kids from Pacoima swimming a few days a week. We were not allowed to swim with them. We had a pool because my father was a pastor at a church that provided us with the house. I had the impression that they were inner city kids who were underprivileged. That's a great word, underprivileged. I realized that they had less privileges than I. I wondered if I was prejudiced against them because I thought they were underprivileged. When I was about 13, I began to question if I might be racist or prejudiced in some way. Have you had the same question? My parents always were on the side of eliminating prejudice and oppression and discrimination, but I still noticed people of color as different from me, probably because I grew up in a really white neighborhood. I was the same as people around me. What is it like if you are different from the people around you? Do they become the dominant group? Are you treated equally, or do people make fun of you, something that happens early in elementary school? Bullying is a form of oppression. Diversity. People are all different. Where are you conscious of diversity in your life? Name the group categories you might find in this class and the individual categories of social identity you might find in this class. In other words, as a group you are all students, but individually you have different qualities and different backgrounds that make you who you are. What makes you different from another person or the same? Racism is a form of oppression. You can say, I'm not a racist. This is a belief that racism is only overt, bigoted, mean, or cruel actions denying the institutional racism. If you are not a racist, if you are never cruel or discriminatory against people who don't look like you, what are you doing to protect them? For me, racism is irrelevant. I don't even notice color. I'm colorblind. Believing the denial of racial identity erases racism. Is this true? If we don't see color, does that mean we are missing the point? Just because we believe we are not racist doesn't mean we don't benefit from the oppression of people of color. Racism isn't my responsibility. I didn't personally cause racism. Should I bear the sins of the past generations, or I just ignore how privilege is inherited? Each of us has some advantages because of who we are, where we were born, who our parents are. But also, those factors may be why we have little privilege. Talking about racism is really unpleasant. This kind of talk makes me uneasy and is therefore divisive. Think positive and forget about racism. Avoidance of difficult subjects is avoidance of learning. If I avoid talking about racism or any other form of oppression and discrimination, I am denying its existence and I am not doing anything to prevent oppression. Power. At the individual level, identify a moment, situation, or aspect of your life when you feel powerful. Group level. Identify a group and or situation where you held power when you could make a decision that would affect someone else. Suppose you were captain of your football team. Suppose you were a student who got great grades. Privilege. Individual level. Identify a situation or aspect of your life where you can see your own privilege. In what contexts do you feel lucky or blessed? I think about the fact that I live in a house instead of an apartment or a trailer. I feel pretty darn lucky. Group level. Identify a group that gives you privilege. What group or in what situation has a group given you respect and or allowed you to influence it? I think I have privilege because I'm a member of people who are all white. I'm also Protestant, and that might also give me some privilege. Power and privilege. At the societal level, identify an aspect of your identity or culture that is part of the dominant group and identify one way you have benefited because of this identity. My parents were able to make some money and save some money and send me to college. We were part of a dominant white group. What is privilege? White privilege. Here's a quiz for white people. Does it exist? If you say yes, then you say, can a white person truly understand what it's like to live without it at all? If you answer no, you say, well, at least you try. If you answer no to does it exist, this cartoon suggests you need to go back and start over. Back to racism as oppression. Now, I'm a good person, this woman says. I don't contribute to racist agendas. I try my best not to be racist myself. I didn't even ask to be born white, but I still benefit from institutionalized racism and discrimination. Unpacking the invisible knapsack. McIntosh compares the denial of racial privilege to the denial of male privilege. They, men, may say they will work to improve women's status in society, the university, or the curriculum, but they can't or won't support the idea of lessening men's privilege. How many of the items on her list were true for you? Think about this. Describe the privileges of your culture as they relate to your own safety. What are the potential risks where your own culture lacks safety and why? Who are the stakeholders that give you privilege, safety, and deny you access or safety? That's something we'll discuss more in week 3. How is it possible that you are part of an oppressed population? How does this affect you? And finally, this class is not designed to make you see things a certain way. I don't have all the answers. You have a set of values, and as a human, I believe, a core value, that I must respect you even when I don't agree with you. During this class, you may learn something about yourself and about your cultural frameworks. This knowledge might change how you see the world. That's the end of week 2. Sorry for the fact that my cockatiel made some noise throughout.